Hello. Today we're going to talk about a dynamic in the Kuali Research module that can be a little bit confusing the first time that people see it. We're going to talk about credit allocation or credit split as it is called in some of the other modules, but we're going to be looking at this in proposal development. It works the same way in every module. So here we're on the key personnel page of proposal development, and you can see we have two personnel listed. I'm going to go ahead and dive in and take a look at these individuals' unit details. You can see that Inez Chu has both the Bloomington campus and the Indiana Institute on Disability and Community listed. Now, the reason that Inez has two separate units listed is that Inez's lead appointment is the Bloomington campus. But IIDC was listed as the lead unit on the overall proposal, so that is pulled in to the PI record because that's where the lead unit is stored. If we go down and look at Alice and Kate, Allison just has the medicine department listed because that is Allison Kate's primary unit, and it was pulled in when Allison was added to this proposal. So we know what the unit makeup looks like, and this is good. We have someone with multiple units, so we'll be able to demonstrate sort of the fullness of the credit allocation functionality. So now we're going to go to credit allocation. And here we can see that we have responsibility, space, and financial as the credit allocation categories. Now, this is configurable by your institution. Some institutions will only have one credit split. They just want credit split in general listed for individuals. Some will have two. In rare cases, you might have a school with 3 or 4 credit allocation categories, although that is generally less common. It really just comes down to what your business needs are. So you'll notice there are two types of rows here. There are the gray rows that have individual people in them, and then there are the lighter white rows with the gray text that have the units for those individuals listed. So the gray rows within a given column have to add up to 100%. So I'll demonstrate this first. We can have 100 and 0. We can have 50 and 50, or we could have something like 10 and 90. But in each case, overall within the column, 100% of the credit for the project is allocated among the individuals on the project, among the personnel. So that's the first step in this. The second step is to allocate credit among the units. So within that, each sort of block of units underneath an individual have to add up to 100%. So again, it could be 100 and 0, it could be 50-50, it could be 10 and 90, but the allocation of this 10% is done below it. So in this case, on financial, the Bloomington campus is getting 90% of the financial credit, and IIDC is getting 10% of the financial credit. The financial credit that's being split up is only 10% of the credit for the whole project, but it has to be broken down for whatever amount it is. Over here, under responsibility, IIDC is getting 100% of the responsibility for the entire project because INES has 100% of the responsibility, and then it's all going to IIDC. In the case of space, IIDC is only getting 25% of the space responsibility overall because INES has half, and then they are getting half of that. Now, where it gets a little weird and where it can be confusing for people is down here, Alice and Kate has 0 responsibility. We still have to allocate that 0 responsibility. And that can be confusing for people. A lot of times they don't necessarily understand why 0% has to be allocated, but the system doesn't necessarily know the difference. The validations are just built on, has everyone's responsibility been broken down? So if Alice and Kate had 2 or 3 units, you could do 25, 25, and 50% of 0. When that got to your SP office, generally speaking, that would probably wouldn't mean anything to them, but the system would look at it and go, 100% of whatever Alice and Kate's credit split is on this particular category has been allocated. That looks good. That's really what the system is looking for. So in this case, because Alice and Kate only has one unit, all of these are going to have to be 100. We can save this. And all the unit totals add up to 100, and all the investigator totals add up to 100. The investigator totals are, as I said, these gray lines, and the unit totals are the breakdown within each individual person for their units. I know that for a lot of people, once they sort of have heard it explained in this broken down manner, it makes a lot more sense to them, but it's not immediately obvious what they're looking at when they first see the interface. And credit split can just be kind of complicated when you look at it in any given proposal or award. As I said, this works the same way in the institutional proposal and the award module. You don't have to turn on the validation. The thing about this particular screen is that while the default is to have the validation on, and most schools do have the validation on, you can use credit split with the validation off. And certain schools will use this to collect other information in that situation, because if they're not doing a strong validation, they aren't tied to that 100% model. And that can be useful, so it's something to consider. There's a parameter to flip that off, and it is useful for some institutions. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you very much.